but leading into some happier things with our storm here.
Yes. So Breanna Stewart was actually at Climate Pledge Arena on the 10th. She held a press conference there where she touched upon a few different topics. One of them that affected her decision, or not really affected, but it played part in her decision to sign a one-year deal, was the WNBA's prioritization clause, which takes effect in 23 to 24, which is a big issue. Players like Breanna Stewart who are playing overseas because it gets them more compensation will now be penalized if they're not there for a training camp. So the first year they get fined for every day or game missed, and the second year, if they aren't at training camp, they can't play the season. Not quite sure how to feel about that, especially with someone like Stewie who makes money playing overseas, and obviously the WNBA isn't big enough yet that they can accurately compensate these big players, so they try to go somewhere else and make money, and now they're going to be penalized in the WNBA. Yeah, I'm just at a loss for words here.
I think I don't know if you saw it. I don't think we talked about it on the show here, what Liz Cambage said a few weeks ago in regards to new Aces coach Becky Hammon earning,
Yes.
I think it's at least $1 million a year as a coach compared to what the players make with a supermax. A supermax
Right.
is like $250,000, right?
Yeah.
And that's a supermax,
Right.
you know. I think it comes down to the owners more so, and I think that the grant that we talked about, the $75 million they raised the other week, should help.
Yeah.
But hey, if I'm gonna make a lot of money playing in the off season overseas, why would I not do that, right? And like a player like Breanna Stewart, why does it matter if I miss a week at or so of training camp if I'm already in game shape? Right. And I'm already someone who's been around, and maybe I just need to get to learn some of the newer players. Why does it matter?
Right.
And that's an issue for the league itself to address, amongst other things. I know we talked about it when we talked about the $75 million. It's about you properly using that money, right? Like we talk about the jersey issue. You can make a lot of money off those jerseys if you actually were selling them correctly.
Right.
So it's another thing where I hope that gets taken care of. I know that she talked about not being happy about that. So, I mean, you'd think someone like Stewie steps up and says, it's like, oh, we need to look into that. We need to take care of that. Right.
Right. So. And like you said, for someone that of Stewie's caliber, who doesn't really need to be at training camp and is already playing games overseas, so she's never really not conditioned to play a professional game, it definitely doesn't seem reasonable. In better news, she did say that playing with Sue Bird also kind of made a decision, or not necessarily said that, but she did say that it was an honor to play with Sue Bird. It's been one of the greatest highlights of her basketball career to step on the floor with the greatest point guard to ever play, and that she's someone she obviously looks up to and respects a lot. So we're happy to have Sue back, and can only imagine that having her back definitely did affect Stewie's decision to come back. So that's good news. She's committed to Seattle, and the focus right now is, like you've said before, it feels like a championship or bust season, especially with all these one-year deals. So hopefully they're able to get on the ball quick and just roll through the season and make it into the playoffs, and we'll see what happens with their future there. In free agency, she did say that it reminded her a lot of high school recruitment. It was just an opportunity for her to see what other organizations are doing, and then bring it back to Seattle and see how they can do better. So that makes it seem like maybe she'll continue to prioritize Seattle. What do you think?
That was, just the quotes that we were able to get from this spring. I'm still stuck on spring training on the press conference. It alleviated some stress that I had, where it's like, okay, I'd come to the decision, hey, if she leaves and we win a title after this, fine, whatever, I'll cry about it later, but with the way that it's talked about and the way that the prioritization was, so that my three main points that I picked up on were the prioritization clause was the main one, that being an issue was something. The second one was being, it reminded me of when I was being recruited in high school to see what organizations were doing and then bring it back to Seattle and how we can do better.
Yeah.
That's two. And then the third one, there wasn't a chance I was going to go anywhere else than Seattle. Those main quotes kind of like, okay, can breathe a little bit, I'm sure, you know, because she also talked about how this next phase of her career, she wants to be a leader and really change into being a leader. What team is going to need a leader after this year?
We are. Yeah. So it's a